So what comes to your mind when you think of a Viper? So what comes to your mind when you think Viper? Dangerous? Heed caution? Venomous? All would be accurate when talking about a dangerous animal, and according to the media, that's exactly what a Dodge Viper is. Dangerous. The Dodge Viper, one of the most feared cars to drive. No traction control, no stability control, and 3 pedals, just the way God intended. Should you fear the Dodge Viper? Yes. With 500 horsepower, 525 pounds-feet of torque at a 505 cubic inches, the Dodge Viper bites hard. The aggressive styling is a warning. Awake the all-aluminum 8.3-liter V10 and you're in for a wild ride. The SRT10 is the 3rd generation of the Dodge Viper, running from 2003 to 2006, with the convertible coming first. The coupe didn't come until 2006, and had an extended run because of it. As the Viper matured, the angles became more sharp, the look more menacing. With extensive use of carbon fiber and an underbody belly pan, the Viper became lighter and much more aerodynamic than its predecessor. With the combination of lighter, more horsepower, and better Euro, the Dodge Viper was able to achieve 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds and the quarter mile in 11.8 seconds. To help slow this fighter jet down, the Viper came with 4 piston calipers fixed to 14-inch rotors. This thing can stop on a dime. With statistics of a supercar and being hand-built in Detroit, the Dodge Viper truly is an American exotic. With only 31,500 Vipers ever made in its total lineage, that means that there is less Vipers made ever than there were Corvettes made in 2017. To compare that to the Corvette, there were 32,700 made just in 2017. So when you're looking at the interior of a Dodge Viper, you notice right away that there's a lot of business going on here. It's not a place where you're going to have a huge infotainment screen. Comes later on in the Vipers, but not in this model. Most people will say that the entertainment comes from the exhaust, and I wholeheartedly agree. You have your T56 shifter, which is surrounded in an aluminum bezel, which looks really nice in my opinion. Then you have next to that an auxiliary port that's hidden, which is nice. You have what can be considered a cup holder, but it's not very deep. If you take a look, that's about as deep of a cup as you can get. It's non-adjustable, so if that cup doesn't fit in there, it will end up everywhere. So there's no cup holder in a Dodge Viper. You have your center console here that gives you a little bit of room, but not much. And you have your glove compartment. That covers the interior storage on your Viper. The seats, in my opinion, are fairly comfortable. They hold you extremely snug, so when you're going on a track or doing any kind of a track day, you are held in place entirely. I'm 6'2" and I can actually dangle my feet. One thing that I think was engineered amazingly in this car is the convertible roof. Now, it is a manual roof. There's no electronic gadgets to help you put it up or put it down. So you actually have to go in and put it down yourself and put it up. But I'm going to show you exactly how easy that is. So from a downed position, to be able to put the top up, all you have to do is press this lever here, lift the roof up, and you've pretty much completed the process. There's a latch, and you're done. To take it down, you undo the latch, lift up, push back, and again, you're done. Now, the most uncomfortable thing in the world is trying to get in or out of a Dodge Viper. The reasoning behind that is the side exhaust. As you can see, that pillar is extremely thick. So trying to get around it is hard, especially when the car's been running. Let me show you why that is. Dodge was nice enough to give you this little warning that says serious injury can occur. Hot exhaust pipe below door opening. Avoid contacting this area and the exhaust tip. What they're saying is anytime you're going to get out of this car, you have to hop in and hop out. Let me demonstrate. All right, so to get in or out of a Dodge Viper, what you have to do is lift your right leg when you're approaching the car, put it in, slide your whole body in, then kick your left leg over this huge exhaust. At that point, you close the door, you're good to go. Now, it's a pretty easy process as long as there's not a car parked next to you. If there is, it makes things very interesting, especially if you've been driving for a while, because of the fact that you have that hot exhaust. So to exit a Dodge Viper, you open the car door as wide as you possibly can, throw your left leg over the exhaust while trying not to touch it, throw your right foot over, grab the door handle, grab the headrest, and you're out. Now, when you're looking in the trunk of the Viper, there's not a lot you're going to find. As you can see, the biggest part of the trunk is taken up for the convertible roof. So what you're left with is this. You can see there's about enough room for about 2 bags. Considering the fact that it's a 2-seater car, you're not really going to need much more than that. I think this is one of the most attractive engines ever made. With the red valve covers, the aluminum intake, and the all aluminum engine, I just think it's gorgeous. When you're looking at the engine, the first thing you notice is right here on the intake, it says V10 505. So it's letting you know immediately that this is a V10 engine with 505 cubic inches. You want to hear it? Sounds pretty good. So we are driving my 2004 Dodge Viper. I got the top down and the Borla exhaust is loud, so I hope you can hear me over all that. But if you can't, it's all right, because I'm having a great time. All right, so let's talk about this car. So it's 500 horsepower, 525 pounds-feet of torque. I'm not gonna lie, I think this car is gorgeous. You know, some kids had a Ferrari on their wall, some kids had a Lamborghini, some kids had a McLaren, Aston Martin. Yeah. I had a Dodge Viper. Now, the car that I originally fell in love with was the Dodge Viper GTS, which is actually the Viper generation before this one. However, when I started looking into Vipers, the GTS came with 460 horsepower. It came with ABS is optional on some of them, air conditioning optional on some of them. And I'm not trying to upset any of my GTS friends because I got a lot of them, but I really feel like the interior is extremely dated in those cars. So I started looking into the SRT10. Beautiful car inside and out. And I decided that 500 horsepower over 460 was awesome. I decided that I've never owned a convertible before this car. I've owned a car with T-tops. I've owned a car that's hardtop. I've owned a top that's Targa that you take all the way off, but I've never owned a car that was convertible. So this is my very first convertible car, and I love it. I love being able to put the top down whenever you feel like it. If it's a nice overcast day like today, you cruise around and it's perfect, you know? And let's get serious. This is a drop-dead gorgeous car. Let's talk a little bit about when I originally got this car. So I bought this car in Beloit, Wisconsin. I did about 3 to 4 months of really heavy research, 6 months total, when I first decided I was going to get a Viper, when I got the permission from the wife. It was between this car and one in Florida. The reason that I bought this was because of the red interior. Completely sold me on the car. It was the only one that I had seen while I was going through and looking at all of them that had a red interior. So I said sold. I wanted a black car. There was a red Viper here in Albuquerque, but because of the fact that it was red, I didn't end up getting it, you know? If you're gonna get a car like this that you're gonna drop more money on than you would on anything else, you want it to be exactly the way you want it. You don't want to settle for what's in town. So I flew out to Beloit, Wisconsin with my buddy Juan. Thank you, Juan, for helping me drive back. We picked it up. We stayed there the first night, picked it up the second day, and we drove for the 20 hours straight from Wisconsin back to Albuquerque. We stopped and, you know, saw a few things here and there, but for the most part it was a 20-hour straight through drive. We did stop in Colorado to try to stay the night, which was at that point the morning. It was like 6 in the morning. We were both exhausted, but when we went to 2 or 3 different hotels, and they kept saying that they were completely booked. So what were we to do? We just decided to keep going. There was a point that I got extremely exhausted, and I told Juan, you know, we're gonna have to pull over at a gas station. I can't do this anymore. I'm exhausted. But luckily he was able to take over, and you know, we drove 4 hours upon end. I'll tell you, when you drive 20 hours in a vehicle, you get to know it very well. So I can tell you, after now 3 years of ownership this month, and being able to drive it straight like that, these seats are comfortable to an extent. I'd say about after 8 hours, they're the most uncomfortable place you can be. They're extremely form-fitting. They will hold you in place. There's no other seat that I've held in outside of an actual racing seat that has held me as well as this one does. And like I said, it is pretty comfortable to a point. Now I'll tell you that my bigger friends don't like the way that these seats hold, because it is pretty tight. When you're talking about a Dodge Viper, you're talking about a very minimal kind of car. It does have ABS, it does have air conditioning, but that's about it. Traction controls your left and right foot, and you better be ready, because it will bite you if you're not careful. There's a reason why journalists love tearing this car apart, and it's mostly because those rear tires can break loose at any time. And I'm talking about a huge footprint, bigger than any other car that I've ever owned. So in order to break those tires loose, you gotta have a lot of torque. And this car has a lot of torque. All right, let's accelerate a little bit. This car is just exciting. It's scary, but it's exciting. 500 horsepower is a lot of horsepower, And in this day and age, 500 horsepower is kind of like the bottom end of where you need to be if you want to be considered high horsepower anymore. You got cars now, I mean, the 2017 Viper had 645 horsepower, so that's 145 horsepower more than this car. That's a lot of horsepower. But 500 horsepower is still a lot of horsepower. It gets you in a lot of trouble, but it is a lot of fun. I would recommend, if anybody is going to drive this car, get to learn it before you go crazy in it, because losing control, you're never going to look cool losing control. So learn your limits. And this car will teach you where your limits are. Now the great thing about a Dodge Viper is you can park it next to any exotic car, whether it's a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, a McLaren, and it's not a car that's going to look out of place next to those. The Viper will hold its own. The Viper does hold its own. And it's not just in the looks that it holds its own. It'll hold its own on the track. The Dodge Viper ACR is one of the quickest cars ever to go around the Nürburgring, and there's a reason for that. The engineers at SRT, they don't mess around with these cars. The suspension is hard. It's not a luxury car. It's not a Grand Tourer. It's a sports car. And it will definitely make you feel that every chance it gets. Potholes are never fun in this car, and it will rattle your feelings loose if you let it. So if we talk about the engine in the Viper, it's an 8.3 liter, 505 cubic inch engine. It's got forged internals, meaning that you could throw performance adders like nitrous at it, or a supercharger or a turbocharger at it, get about 200 additional horsepower, and everything's still going to work the same. That's going to be a lot more violent of a ride, but the suspension can handle the extra horsepower, the engine can handle the extra horsepower, the rear end can handle the extra horsepower, and so can the transmission. That's one of the great things about these Dodge Vipers, is that they were over-engineered. Dodge actually required that these engines go through the same stringent tests that they go through with their daily drivers. It's not something that a lot of car manufacturers that make these low-volume cars do, because they're not going to sell as many, and they know that most of the people that will be buying these cars will not be putting them through the Tundra. But the Dodge Viper was over-engineered to make sure that if you wanted to take it to the Tundra, it will still start, it will still work, and it's a lot of fun. Ready? 'Cause I am. This car handles fantastically. It will go around a turn just fine. I have never tracked this car, but I have spiritedly driven it up the Sandia Mountain, which is a very curvy road going up there. And it'll let you know when it's at its limits. You know that when you start breaking the tires loose, it's time to slow down. But outside of that, it will handle with the best of them. I love my Dodge Viper. I love my Dodge Viper. The Viper is definitely our date car. Me and my wife love to go out in the Viper because it makes us feel like, you know, we have no responsibility. We're just having fun. And we have a blast when we're in this car. She gets a little crazy with my gas foot, but for the most part, she loves this car just as much as I do. It's the best car to take out on date night. You know, if it's just her and I, we don't have the kids, why not? And that's how we treat it. We go out on dates and it's just her and I. Love you, girl. In conclusion, the Dodge Viper demands your attention at all times. However, show the Viper some respect. Show this snake a little charm, and you will be rewarded with one of the funnest, best handling cars in the world. Drop a Viper off at any Cars and Coffee, exotic car run, or track, and she demands the same respect given to any exotic car made from Germany, Italy, or England. The Dodge Viper is an American exotic. Boom. Own that shit. Alright, so we came up to the peak.
Yeah!
To
First
record. Got some Irby, Irby.com.
Yeah! Irby10.com, go there.
We came up here to film some drone footage of the Viper, but it's way too windy. We're guessing, what do we say, 50 mile per hour gust? Somewhere
there, 50.
50. So that's going to be a big NO. But doesn't mean we can't enjoy the view. Look at this. Woo! Crisp February. It's like being at the top of the world.